Good evening. At week's end, President Trump is confronting a grim reality. The coronavirus pandemic is spreading like wildfire in many states, with more than 40,000 new cases on Thursday alone, and spikes in Florida, Texas, and California. Here was what Dr. Anthony Fauci said this week.
What we're dealing with right now is community spread in the context of a substantial proportion of the people who are getting infected do not know they're infected. They're not symptomatic. This is part of a process that we can be either part of the solution or part of the problem. If we don't extinguish the outbreak, sooner or later, even ones that are doing well are going to be vulnerable to the spread.
But as governors reel from these alarming new numbers, the Trump administration has asked the Supreme Court to strike down President Obama's health care law, and it considered ending direct federal funding for 13 testing sites in 5 states by the end of the month. Then on Friday, it said it would actually extend funding in Texas after an outcry. As all this criticism mounts, the president has blamed the rise in cases on expanded testing, as he did Thursday with Sean Hannity on Fox News.
We have more cases because we do the greatest testing. If we didn't do testing, we'd have no cases. Other countries, they don't test millions, so up to almost 30 million tests.
Joining us tonight are 4 reporters ready to open their notebooks. Abby Phillip, political correspondent for CNN. Kasie Hunt, Capitol Hill correspondent for NBC News and host of Kasie DC on MSNBC. Dan Balz, the chief correspondent for The Washington Post. And Jonathan Lemire, White House reporter for the Associated Press. Good Friday evening to all of you. Appreciate you being here. Abby, let's start with you. You look at these governors, many of them Republican, facing a crisis in their states as these case numbers soar. What's the significance of these Trump allies now having problems?
Well, these are the very same people who just a few months ago were so eager to open their states back up that they were among the first to do it. And now they're realizing that there are real consequences to doing it too quickly and to doing it not in conjunction with clear public health messaging about what people should do. So when you see places like Texas and you see places like Florida starting to realize that they have a potentially uncontrollable outbreak on their hands, that is a real warning sign, because these were the folks who were the most ardent backers of the administration pushing for reopening. They are suddenly, in Texas in particular, starting to close their states up again. This does not bode well for this administration that seems to want to pretend like these outbreaks are not happening and that they're not significant. They are real, and even the president's allies are starting to realize it and having to respond to it.
Jonathan, can you build on Abby's reporting there? The task force that met on Friday, Dr. Fauci sounding the alarm, but Vice President Pence touting the administration's response. What's the story inside the West Wing?
Well, this was the first coronavirus briefing they've had in a number of weeks. Vice President Pence, in front of the cameras, asked Americans 3 times to pray. He didn't even ask once for Americans to don masks, which of course health experts believe is so crucial to stopping the spread of this virus. Behind the scenes, Bob, this is a president who wants to forge forward, who's talking about the virus even in the past tense, touting success of the testing program, exaggerating the success of the testing program, and so eager to restart the nation's economy, believing that's his really only best chance to win re-election this November. He's forging forward, even plunging into the hot spots. I was with him on Tuesday when he went to Arizona. He visited the border wall as a tout an accomplishment as a signal to his conservative base, but then also held a rally of sorts in a packed megachurch in Phoenix. That event, no social distancing,
right? No
temperature checks, very few masks. And it's one that, while the president fed off that crowd, there are some around him that worry, in Arizona, a state where the virus is surging, that could have even been a super spreader event in itself.
Kasie, when you're up on Capitol Hill, you covered Dr. Fauci's testimony this week. Are there Republican cracks? We saw Senator Cornyn and Senator Cruz of Texas pushed back against the administration's position on testing. What else are you hearing?
Well, Bob, I do think that this is a scenario where the politics of the Senate Republicans and the president aren't necessarily the same as they have been on so many issues over the past several years, because so many members of Congress are seeing their constituents suffering. They are seeing hospitals, healthcare providers in their states, in their home districts, grappling with the intensity of this crisis. And that's the first, foremost, and most important reality that they have to answer to. And while, as Jonathan Lemire pointed out, the White House has sent some serious mixed messaging on wearing masks, that's not what you're hearing from members of the Republican Senate. Marco Rubio was very direct in saying everyone should put on a mask already, and you're seeing them do it themselves for the most part in the halls of Congress. So this is something that I think Republicans are really feeling the pressure on, and it is going to contribute to how they feel about their own reelection chances coming up in the fall. As people are grappling with this pandemic, every person engaged in the election or not is having to deal with this in their own personal lives. And if they're not happy with how people in power, and right now Republicans hold the White House and the Republican Senate, are doing in grappling with this crisis, they're going to be unhappy and potentially vote for change. And I think you're really seeing an across-the-board reaction to that in a way you have not seen Republicans react to other issues over the past years of the Trump administration.
Yet, Dan, when you look at the Republicans, they're still standing by him in the polls, and they seem to applaud when he goes after the Affordable Care Act, President Obama's health care law. When you look at the Trump administration taking that move, making that move this week, do you see a White House and administration trying to hold Republicans together? What's the political explanation for that fight?
I think the only political explanation, Bob, is that it does play to the Republican base. Getting rid of the Affordable Care Act has been an article of faith among Republicans ever since it was passed by the Obama administration. And I think they would dearly like to do that. But the politics of it and the timing of it probably couldn't be worse. We know that the Affordable Care Act was unpopular for a number of years. That's not the case today. People have a much higher opinion of it than they once did. And at this moment, in the middle of a pandemic, the idea of completely upending the healthcare system by getting rid of the Affordable Care Act is something that I think will make many, many Americans nervous. So I think both in terms of the pure politics of it and the timing of it, it seems terribly awkward on the administration's part to do this.